Welcome back to How a Realist Hero Built the Kingdom. Yeah. Anime Review episode number 13. Yeah, this will discuss the newest episode of the season, the final episode of season 1. I say season 1 because I'm going to also get my final thoughts on the season and an announcement. Yes, that teases and open topics. In the case of this episode, this one adapts from there's like your short story that comes at the end of book two. They adapt that. It's called Prelude to Post-War Period. They adapt that entire thing. I don't think they live anything of that one. In the case of chapter one, they adapted bits and pieces a little bit more. Like there's a little bit more they adapted from book one. They skipped over from last week, and also books three, part three and part four, part three and part five, the chapter, and pretty much the rest of it. Yes, and they also adapt the intermission, which is interesting. And they adapted pretty much most of chapter two, and they skipped over the beginning portion of the chapter that focuses not on Sotoma, but Lucia. Yeah, there's a scene in the first portion of chapter two where Lucia is having a conversation with Carla, who's in a cell, and this takes up pretty much the first portion of chapter two. Now, what is adapted for the start of it is simply the explanation of the Chaos Kingdom, which of course the anime does really well. And unlike in other episodes, in the past few they didn't have any like open narration. This one is basically narration plus a cold, kind of like a opening scene before we have the actual title sequence, which is interesting. They basically explain the origin of the Chaos Empire, the whole thing with the Mankind Treaty, the Demon Domain, some of the royalty. They do cut some bits and pieces here and there, but most of it they keep a good gist exactly what was presented in that short story about the Grand Chaos Empire, which the anime does a fantastic job with it. Talks about how the current Empress Maria is also referred to as the Saint of the Empire, and then we cut to like in this before the we cut to present day, where you have Maria, who's not in the throne, basically in some like private room with a table, where she is instructing her first sister, basically the second princess of the family, to go to Van to negotiate with Sotoma over the occupation of the city of Van, which is the capital of the Principality of Armenia. And of course, they basically say their goodbyes and they go off. In that case, Maria herself, and of course, they talk about the whole thing about Sotoma in a very positive way. Now, in the case of Maria, she's not seen for the rest of the episode, though. I at least appreciate though they actually tease stuff in here that you will get a chance to see in the actual light novels. Cut to basically present day, where we cut basically to the city of Van. Now, we do see that Sotoma's getting a lot of requests for, how should I put this? He gets a lot of requests for a lot of the entertainment stuff, basically, that was denied by the previous Prince Gallus. And he's happily approving of them. And there's also talk about him getting his own bedroom, which I thought was quite hilarious. Like, you just use it for sleeping. You could probably also use it for him to read a book or sew stuff. Which, yes. And then, of course, there's also a brief scene in its very same office where Sotoma's getting a sort of, it looks like a call from the Prime Minister, Hikaru, where he's informing him that soldiers from the Empire are on the way there. The main force will be there for some time, but this advance party will be there anytime. They're like, okay. Excuse me. And of course, it's kind of like next day after the whole, like, the broadcast they had. Of course, they're still using the dual broadcast system, which is quite nice. And then we have Sotoma, Tomi. Yes, Tomi's here. Like, when did she arrive? Don't know. The book didn't bother explaining either. And, of course, we have Juna here. Now, Lucia, I should point out, though, she's in a little bit more of what they adapt. What was actually... They actually got a lot of Lucia out of this episode for some reason. She's there for, like, one scene, and I'm like, that's it. She's the female lead of the series, and yes, she appears for, like, just one scene, one full scene, and then the rest of the episode is focused on her at all. Because then we see Sotoma, Tomi, and Juna, yes, Juna, Though there's in the book, there's a reference to when the little day off vacation from, I believe it was book one, I believe it was, where this episode doesn't mention it per se, but it's very similar. We have Sultana dressed up like pretty much like a traveler from feudal Japan with the straw hat, along with Tomi and Juna, who Juna is wearing a katana on her side. So they go about and just be on the cover. Now I should point out that in the book, basically, whenever she first admits His Majesty, he says, "Just call me Katsuma," and that's what it says in the anime. In the book, he says to call him Master Katsuma. So they cut a little bit of dialogue here, like some tiny bits, which some of them basically don't make any sense. Where they just walk around for a bit and they come across. Now in the book, they explain this is actually the Silver Deer, the shop that they're in, where it's run by a man named Sebastian. Who, this guy has appeared previously in a couple episodes of this series. This guy is a close associate of Princess Roranora, who he does mention in the episode. Now, her whole bit in this episode is straight from the book. No cuts, no alterations. We first see her where she's admiring what Sultana is doing, and of course, preparing what's coming next. This actually is a tease for what happened in book 4 of the series, which I'm sure the anime might get to that. We'll get to that anyways. And we see her sneezing at, well, somebody mentioning her name. That is a common anime trope. That happens in a lot of anime I watch, where somebody talks with somebody and we cut to them sneezing because they talk about him. Excuse me. And of course, you have Sebastian. They don't identify him by name in the episode. They also cut the bit where he identified Katsuma despite the fact being undercover. Yeah, that bit I didn't really understand why they were cutting that out. And plus, the name of this place, the Silver Deer, it's a franchise. That's what the thing is. It's a franchise store secretly owned by Roranora, who is a very good businesswoman. She has a very good sense of business and economics. So Sultana ends up buying clothes not only for Tomi, and also buying her some shoes. They realize as a gift. Buys these very good looking shoes. And he also buys something for Juna, this like ladybug hairpin. He also, when he meets up with Aisha, which is this, I should point out, this is her only appearance the whole episode. This last little bit at the end of the episode. I will get to what happened before that in a minute, where he revealed that he got Aisha, got her a tube of lipstick. I'm like, okay, and what did I see again? She was kind of embarrassed, like, oh crap, did you forget about me? It's like, nope, got her a necklace, which good job on you, man. You gave your future wife a necklace. Now, before this scene, there was actually a brief scene where we also have Sultana, Tomi, and Juna. Of course, Juna reveals that they're members of the intelligence corps. Well, actually people in the army who are shadowing them, just to keep an eye from distance, which is perfectly standard for stuff like this and series like this, where you have royalty out and about, and you gotta have a shadow guard around. So they go try some food, which, by the way, we have Pancho brief here in the episode. Yes, his whole bit in the episode is introducing this particular type of thing as substitute for potato, which is made from this particular plant, mentioned by orangutans, and he serves as a soup. And in case you're curious, though, was there anything really cut from him? Like, for his bit in the episode, was anything cut from the book? No, surprisingly, nothing was cut for him. Like, nothing for him was animated. It's all straight from the book, which good job for the anime doing. And, of course, then we have Sultana, Juna, and Tomi where they're relaxing. It looks like some kind of, like, hill. And we hear the Jewel broadcasts them. And then, of course, Gina shows up with some of her forces who are holding back the Shadow Guard. And she and Sultana have a brief conversation. Like, the fact that, well, he's a wise king. And the fact that they also mention he's a lecherous clean king, which this actually, her dialogue in this episode is straight from the book. From what I can tell, I don't think they cut anything out here. From what I can tell from rereading the book, yeah, nothing was cut here. Where it's like mentioning, oh, he's surrounded by some beauties, which that is indeed true. He definitely is surrounded himself by a bunch of beauties, which is so hilarious. And of course, she's here to discuss negotiations over Van. And she also asked permission to use the dual broadcasting system the way he uses it in the Grand Chaos Empire. He's like, no problem, you can do that, no problem. And he mentions, oh, this is perfectly standard in my world. Of course, it meant to happen in an episode where he was isekai there. Though in the series, even though in the real world we refer to it as isekai, basically be transformed world. In this series, and this has happened in the term in fiction of this for the ultimate term, isekai is a hero summoning, where you summon there to be a sacrifice. That was really the purpose of it. And Juna, I don't think ever heard this particular piece of information before. She seemed a bit shocked. Also, she was also surprised the fact that Gina knew who she was. Now, in the book, they refer to her as Lorelei Juna Domaru, and in the anime, they kind of changed it, though it's still pretty much the same type of dialogue with her. It's like, I will, no harm will come to you, Juna the songstress, which I don't mind that change at all. It's just kind of weird they refer to as in the book the first Lorelei, and of course her real name. In the anime, it's Juna the songstress. Okay, perfectly fine. I've got no real issue with that. And of course, the scene ends with them basically agreeing and meeting later on for negotiations of the capital ban. Which, okay, it's actually pretty good. All in all, this was a damn good episode. Was there anything I didn't like about the episode? Well, it's mostly some dialogue I didn't like was cut. Good examples. Not identifying the store that Sotoma is in. That's one good example. Like, because in the book they identify this place as a Silver Deer. The anime just has some like, it's almost like the people who made the anime are expecting you to have read the light novel in order to get to what this place is. I know what it is because I read a light novel. It's been a little while, but I have read it. And also, they cut out the small bit. Now, the whole thing of him identifying as Katsuma, that I kind of thought basically they cut that bit out. Probably that part was due to time constraints, but cutting out the bit where they mentioned this place is the Silver Deer, that I thought was very dumb on the part of the animators, the people who wrote the script for this episode. That was really dumb for them to do. I mean, it's the name of the store. Why couldn't they mention it? I thought that was kind of dumb. It's interesting though that we have tiny bits of the first portion of the first chapter, first portion, and not full adaptation. Which I like the fact they threw a little bit more in, and it's interesting to throw an intermission into this series. Which I think this is the first episode to throw in one of the intermissions, because I don't think that second book didn't have intermission. But what about, let's say, the first book? It did. As far as I can tell for the original book, the first book, like, the two intermissions it had were never adapted for the series. I don't really know why. It's kind of weird. Why the heck it's like that. Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, in the case of my final thoughts of the first season of the show, I will discuss more in a minute. Great show. I absolutely love it. I have watched the I'd say the first 3 episodes, at least 2 or 3 episodes dubbed. And I think that the series so far has released, I think it's let's see, how far did it go for the dub? The dub, as far as I can tell, has gotten up to episode 5. Yes, 5 out of 7. Mm-hmm. I think in the case of episode 12, I think they cut a little too much out of episode 12. That was by far, when it comes to adaptation-wise, had the worst cuts, where a lot of stuff was cut for, like, no apparent reason. But this is still a really enjoyable series, and now for the announcement for it. It was announced today that this series is getting a season 2. Which, when I heard that, I'm like, thank you, Bones, for doing this. Because I love this anime. It is so freaking good. And you're probably curious, though, when is the season coming out? January of next year. I'm like, wow, 2 anime coming out in January? Like, this is one of 2. The other course being Afria, which is really cool. The fact we have two anime come out the same month. Now, I'm sure the series probably will premiere on a Saturday per se. I'm not too sure about free. It could be on Saturday. I'm not really sure. But in the case of what Saturday I think it'd be, well, the only Saturdays I could now, because this series normally airs on Saturdays, I would probably think it could be airing New Year's Day. That's a possibility, though I think they might skip that. January 8th seems like a pretty good, reasonable time for the season to premiere. And my guess is we're going to continue down to book 3, and maybe we'll to book 4. Hopefully, anyways. Maybe go to book 6. Now, I should point out, though, something I actually forgot to talk about in my last video for the series. I was thinking of 0.5. I figured, don't really need to discuss this, basically, just for a brief bit. And it comes for the light novels. As of yesterday, I have actually, as of 2 days ago, I think this was, I have pretty much finished up every single light novel that's released in English over here. Now, I've read over here. They've released physically the first 12 books. 13 comes out in November. I think 14 comes out in February. Yeah, I think so. I think it's February, which is interesting that the fact comes February. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to get my hands on it. And I have been loving the books. They are so freaking good. Like, basically in book 10, like, that's when the thing that's building up since book 1, where they have, I should put this, where we got engaged in the first book, where he's appointed the king. The ceremony finally happens in book 10, along with his marriage to not only Lucia, but I'm not going to spoil anything else because it's a really big book. And I really hope that when they get to adapting book 10, which I'm hoping they will, especially since there's still plenty of source material to adapt from. Yes, definitely. Like, how far do I think that the second season probably go to? Depends upon the length. I definitely think they're going to finish it done in book 3, not much of an issue there. I think they're probably just going to go to book 5, I'd say. 5, maybe 6 if they're lucky. Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, there's plenty of material based upon how many light novels are released. There's plenty of material for several seasons. I would say that we have good enough material for about 5, 6 seasons overall. Maybe more. Who knows? It could be a long-lasting anime. Now, maybe my guess is the reason why they were getting a season 2 is because, and this is my personal theory, I think it's got a good critical reception. Probably not just over here, but probably also in Japan as well. Probably because it's been positively received. That, or Funimation likes the reception that the series is getting, which is sure is probably pretty positive. So I think that the reason why we're getting season 2 probably because Funimation requested it, because they realized though that the series is like doing well for them viewership wise. That's probably another theory, but who knows? All I know is we're getting another season, which I'm loving that because the series is so freaking good. Yep. So yes, that's the particular view, and that's gonna be it for videos today. So tomorrow, expect to see reviews for. I was thinking of doing a Comic Corner next, but because of how late it's getting, not a good idea to do that. Nope. So tomorrow I'll do a Comic Corner review of the newest chapter Black Clover, obviously, along with the newest episodes of Eden Zero, My Hero Academia, One Piece, and I'm also going to do Case Closed. I did not get time to do that tonight anyways. And finally, Boruto. And starting this week, Monday through Wednesday, Wednesday is free for the first time since July. Yes. So in case you're to see you all in my very next video, which will be tomorrow. Bye.